So exciting to do a column for David Brooks. Robert Frost wrote, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." David Brooks, in a world which has moved inexorably down a path paved with too much hyperbole, cynicism, and categorical one-dimensionality, you, sir, have mustered the courage and integrity to take the road less traveled. Emerging out of the stridency of today's political and societal squabbles, yours is a voice of reason, cutting through the confusion with clarity, sensitivity, and understanding. In more ways than one, that voice reverberates in harmony with Yeshiva University's raison d'etre as a beacon of truth for our community and for our world. Born in Toronto in 1961, you grew up in Stuyvesant Town here in New York. After receiving a bachelor's degree in history from the University of Chicago in 1983, you became a police reporter for the City News Bureau. From there, you've gone on to assume posts at some of the most respected and widely read publications in the business, becoming a senior editor at the Weekly Standard and a contributing editor at Newsweek and the Atlantic Monthly. Today, you stand on top of social commentary's supreme soapbox, a bi-weekly column in the New York Times, a post which you have occupied since September 2003. With what New York Magazine has dubbed a Brooksian intellectual centrism, you parse through some of the most complex and thorny matters of the day with an impressively calm demeanor. This equanimity and level-headedness has earned you the respect of liberals and conservatives alike. Through your profound and prolific commentary, the nature of your character as a mensch par excellence is readily apparent. To be sure, you do not shy away from harsh realities and from incisive inquiry of our leaders and policymakers, but always, always with an eye toward progress, not retreat, building, not destroying, with healthy skepticism, never sinister cynicism. Your values, values of truth, integrity, kindness, and morality, these values seep from your prose into the consciousness of so many Americans in a truly profound way. In that way, you have ascended to a position of leadership within this generation, a responsibility which you bear with earnestness and urgency. David Brooks, how fitting it is to host you tonight at this annual assembly, honoring Yeshiva University and the value which it adds to the world. Ultimately, the mandate of this university boils down to this belief. Our responsibility is to partner with God, not in retreating from, but in engaging with the wide world around us, forever informed by the eternal values of our tradition. That too is a road less traveled by, a road which necessitates patience, sensitivity, and bravery. But why should I place words in the mouth of one of the great wordsmiths of our generation? Quote, "Yeshiva has always been at the forefront of Jewish thought, and through Jewish teaching, the cultivation of American values for generations," unquote. Quote, "In an era where the lessons of the Torah are often absent from the public square, I've tried, like the students and faculty of Yeshiva, to study those truths and apply them to present concerns." Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world of extremes, of compartmentalization. Frankly, it's easier that way. The voice of reason, of balance, of nuance, too often gets lost in the mix because it's difficult to do so. Yeshiva students take up the formidable task of finding that golden mean without ambivalence and without cynicism, but through a commitment to teasing out the texture of life. You, David Brooks, serve as a noble exemplar of what we hope our students will become. Young men and women equipped to paint a picture of their world, not of black and white, but with a palette of infinite hues and colors. I am therefore oh so privileged to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa. In token thereof, I cause to be placed over your shoulders this visible symbol of our high regard for you, and I hand you this diploma. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Heller. Ladies and gentlemen, David Brooks.
It is, of course, a great honor. Never have so many hooded, so few. A great honor to be here with the other honorees who have had lifetimes of impressive service. Let's face it, I wrote one column about a supermarket called Pomegranate, which got me here. But I am pleased. I know many of us in this room are Jewish, and I'll try to be brief. I know you didn't come here to hear me speak. You came here to hear yourself speak. I'll try to get out of the way. I did learn the essence of getting an honorary degree. It's generally a good idea if you get one to give the president a tip on the way out, just to show him you did a good job, 10, 20 bucks, something like that. The speaker gets 30 or 40 bucks, by the way. I rode up here on the train on the Acela quiet car with actually half the Israeli government. And I will tell you, the rules of the quiet car did not stand a chance. And so one of the reasons I'm pleased to be here is that being Jewish connects you to the past, it connects you to values, it connects you to the people of Israel, and it connects you to so many things outside yourself. I was driving in Israel a couple of years ago, and I was driving in Tel Aviv, and a bus wanted to turn a corner, and he honked at me to back up. So I backed up, and I backed up right into the Israeli guy behind me. The young Israeli guy got out of the car, and he dashed out in the middle of the street, started screaming at the bus driver. Then he came to me, and he hugged me, because we were brothers in the war against bus drivers. And he was super nice to me. And then another bus came by, and he interrupted our disputation or our conversation, and he screamed at that bus driver. And every time a bus drove by, he ran away screaming at bus drivers every few minutes. And so that is the connection we have with the people of Israel, instant intimacy. And I told this story to someone who told me another story of a friend who was in Israel calling directory assistance to get the number for a restaurant. And of course, you've probably heard this story, the operator said, "Nah, you don't want to eat there." And so we do have connections outside ourselves through our Jewish heritage. We have connections with the New York Times. I think that's part of the Jewish heritage. My joke is that being a conservative columnist at the New York Times is like being the chief rabbi at Mecca. Not a lot of company there. I should confess, I got a lot of my training at the University of Chicago, and the best saying about Chicago is it's a Baptist school where atheist professors teach Jewish students St. Thomas Aquinas. But I want to celebrate Yeshiva today because it is a contrast with the world. The world, if you're a young person, especially a privileged, affluent, educated young person, you're growing up in a world of intense, competitive, meritocratic pressure. You go outside the elementary schools, the third grade classrooms, 3 in the afternoon, you see the kids coming out of the elementary school. They got their 80-pound backpacks. If the wind blows them over, they're like beetles, sort of stuck there on the ground. If you are in the suburbs, these line of cars drive up to pick them up. It's usually Saabs and Audis and Volvos, because in certain suburbs, it's socially acceptable to have a luxury car so long as it comes from a country hostile to U.S. foreign policy. That's fine. And there's a creature who I've written about who comes out to pick them up, who I call Uber moms, who are highly successful career moms who've taken time off to make sure all their kids can get into Harvard. And you can usually tell the Uber moms because they actually weigh less than their own children. Sort of at the moment of conception, they're doing little butt exercises to stay fit and trim. It's taking so many soy-based nutritional formula during pregnancy that the babies come out these 13-pound monsters, these toothless defensive linemen plopping out in the living room. The Uber mom is cutting the umbilical cord herself, flashing little Mandarin flashcards at the thing to get it ready for the Harvard. Then by the time they've completed high school, they've cured 4 formerly fatal diseases, started 3 companies, done environmental awareness training in Tibet. I have them, I teach at Yale. I only teach at schools I couldn't have gotten into. And I asked my kids, what are you doing this spring? And it's like, oh, I'm going on vacation. I'm going to be unicycling across Thailand while reading to lepers. It's this sort of thing. Fabulous skills. They have the ability to dominate classroom discussion without doing any of the reading. Looking at you with rapt attention even though they're sound asleep. And so they have a certain sort of material intelligence. And that is the competitive pressure that they are really pressured into being in this kind of world. But the highest praise that you can give to Yeshiva is that it is a counterculture. And Yeshiva makes this kind of success more difficult. and it makes a two-sided success, which is the goal of a real education, more likely. And when I think of this two-sided success, I think of a hero of mine, and I'm sure you're familiar with this dichotomy from Joseph Soloveitchik of the story of the two atoms. Just as a quick reminder, Atom 1 is the majestic atom, the one who wants to build, create, win victories, have a great career. Atom 2 is the humble atom, the internal atom, who wants to embody moral qualities not only to do good, but to be good. Atom 1 asks how things work. Atom 2 asks why things exist. Atom 1 wants to go venture forth. Atom 2 wants to return to roots. Atom 1's motto is success. Atom 2's motto is renunciation and redemption. And so Soloveitchik's point was that the good life involves a permanent confrontation between these two sides of our nature within ourselves. But we happen to live in a society that nurtures and encourages and bloats Atom 1 while neglecting and leading to the atrophy of Atom 2, the internal atom. And that leaves many of my students and many privileged students inarticulate about morality and what really matters in life. And so it's necessary to be a counterculture to actually have a theory of how do you build Atom 2. And I've been thinking of the pedagogy of Atom 2. And I think there are a couple elements to how you build a good internal life, exemplified by the curriculum at Yeshiva. One, a new logic. Atom 1's logic is direct. It's sort of like an economic logic. Input leads to output, effort leads to reward, skill begets skill. Atom 2's logic is inverse. It's a moral logic, but not an economic logic. You got to surrender to something outside yourself to gain strength within yourself. You got to conquer your desire to get what you want. Success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. Failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning. To fulfill yourself, you have to forget yourself. To find yourself, you have to lose yourself. The second thing you need, I think, is a new metaphor. We tend to have a meritocratic metaphor of life, how we organize our life. It's a journey. If you ever saw that Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, that's how we tend to think of our lives. It's a journey. But Atom 2 asks us to see life not as a journey, but as a confrontation against our own sin and weakness, as a battle against ourselves and our own weakness in our nature. It asks us to make this battle against the self and against the weakness and against sin the central drama of life, not the outer journey. It asks us to make the condition of our soul the central preoccupation of life. And it asks us to do it with order, with obedience to God's law, without which no good life is possible. The third element of this pedagogy of the internal life of Atom 2 is a certain sort of knowledge and a certain sort of learning. The knowledge of Atom 1 is the knowledge of skills. And you get that in any professional school, and it's important. Skills are taught by words and by textbooks. But the knowledge of internal goodness, I think it's hard to lecture people into being good. It's imparted, not lectured. I recently had a veterinarian write me an email from Oregon, and he mentioned to me how hard it was in this email, I'd never heard of the guy, how hard it is to tell people to be good. He wrote that what a wise person teaches is the least part of what he gives. He wrote, the message is the person. It's 1,000 small gestures from a teacher or a colleague or a friend or a mentor that actually teach somebody else how to live because they want to imitate those gestures. It's small acts of consideration and devotion that were in turn imparted by a wise man or woman now lost in the mists of time. And it's simply by imitation that we become better, not so much by learning. And the fourth pedagogy of Atom 2, of internal atom, I'd say is a new form of motivation. Atom 1, the career atom, is motivated by self-interest, the joy of doing a job well done, the desire for recognition, the desire for status, money, worldly pleasure. Atom 2 is motivated, I think, primarily by a different motivation, motivated by love. When you're in love with a person, you naturally want to do things for them. You want to bring them coffee in bed. You want to give them presents on a special day. When you're in love with an institution like Yeshiva, you naturally want to give it some money, give it some support. Little plug. And this can be a ferociously strong desire. The love for God can be the same ferocious desire. When you feel God's love descending upon you, you naturally want to hollow out your heart to receive it in its fullness. You'll naturally want to practice self-effacement and self-forgetting so you can orient your life toward God and not toward yourself. You want God's love to display self as the center of your life. And then having raised the flag of surrender to God's love, you naturally want to rise up and meet it. You want to naturally rise up and do the things that will delight God. You naturally want to rise up, follow his commandments, his laws and rituals. You want to follow his happiness, his spirit, his examples, the examples of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. You want to bend your soul heavenly and toward the wisest examples of our tradition. And all of this is done in great gushes of love and praise. And this is part of the pedagogy of Adam 2. It's just an awesome motivational tool that has driven people throughout the centuries to release energies in nuclear proportions. And I would end with one question and one statement. How often in our Jewish tradition do we go to services and display great gushes of love and praise for God? Do we sometimes do the ritual, debate the law, but neglect the love and the visible gushing of love that is the prime motivator? My own personal view is that one of the reasons parts of our tradition are under threat and shrinking is because we've neglected this motivation, which draws people and fulfills people in. We're good at talking about ritual. We're good at debating law. We're not great at talking about the love of God. And so that is, I think, a task before all of us. But I will say, to be here is such an honor because it's one of the rare institutions in this country that is consciously, intentionally, and intelligently not only training Adam 1, but is training the two sides of life, both the Adams, the majestic and the humble. And it's impressive to be here, even on the Waldorf, in the middle of a profound and necessary counterculture. Thanks very much.